Today on Faith Matters, someone you should know with Bob Millican. I'm Seth Weber, and you're listening to Faith Matters, a podcast designed to help you think biblically in matters of the Christian faith and update you on matters of Faith Bible Church. It's a pleasure to have you here, Mr. Millican. Bob Millican. Bob.
It's a pleasure to be here. A little nervous, Seth. This is not my normal forte, but I'm glad to be here.
So tell me, where were you born? Where did you grow up?
I was born in Moses Lake to my mom and dad, Maxine and Earl Millican. They lived there before the town was called Moses Lake.
Really? Okay.
Raised there my whole life. When I became a young adult, I decided it was time to get out.
Okay.
It's a good place to be raised, a good place to leave. It was a great childhood in those days, back in the 50s and 60s.
You got any fun memories to share?
Had a bicycle, had friends. We just ran the town, lived by the lake for many years, swam, fished. I had a goal one time. Moses Lake had a lot of carp.
Okay.
Which is a large garbage fish. And I had a goal to kill 100 carp one day because we would go carp hunting.
Okay.
Different methods of doing that. But I met that goal.
Wow.
And,
that's impressive.
Quite proud of that. It was quite a mess.
Did you eat them all when you were done?
Never ate them. never ate one carp in my life. But anyhow, that was kind of a fun time. But yeah, it was a great place to live. Grew up hunting, being in the sand dunes of Moses Lake.
So you were there through high school?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
And then after that, did you go to higher education anywhere?
I went to the junior college there, Big Bend Community College.
Okay.
At that time, I had an interest in pursuing park administration, recreation, wanting to be like a state park ranger.
Nice.
I did almost 2 years there, transferred to EWU, Eastern Washington University, continued pursuing that education, and then they dropped that emphasis of park administration. And I'm like, what do I do now? So my counselor said that, everybody has to take a rec therapy class. So I took it, enjoyed it. Realized I had a heart for, those with developmental disabilities.
Okay.
And then that led on to, I graduated. I was actually in and out of college for 10 years, Seth.
Wow.
I dropped out a couple times for personal reasons and then went back during the time that Janice and I got married.
Okay. Well, speaking of Janice, why don't you tell us about how you and Janice met and your family and stuff?
We met in college. She remembers meeting me at a social event. I didn't quite remember that, but and then we ended up having a class together called Psychology of Child and Adolescence, which is kind of ironic. But in that, we became good friends and did one dance together at a school dance. It was like a Sadie Hawkins type of thing.
Okay.
And our romance started from that point. And
this was in college, you said?
In college, yeah.
Okay.
So that was in 1979, I believe. We met.
And then what year did you guys get married?
1981.
Okay. It didn't take too long.
No.
A little bit of time, but.
Yeah. She became a very good friend of mine before. Yeah.
And then tell me about your children.
We raised 5 sons, and the oldest, I believe he's turning 42, Caleb.
Okay.
Janice will be better at the ages. Keegan's our second son. Caleb's a nurse. And Keegan does demolition work. He's kind of a crew leader on that. Corey is a pastor, associate pastor in Northern California.
Yep, sent out from here.
Yep, yes. And then Ethan is starting his own business, been doing that for a couple of years as a He does excavation, like,
Wow.
if you need a road put in or some small trees pulled out, he does stuff like that.
Nice.
And Jared and Claire, of course, in the Czech Republic, sent out by this church.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Tell us how you came to know Jesus.
God was very patient with me, Seth. I had several opportunities or times that people shared the gospel with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was not interested. I was interested in the things of my own life at that time, not necessarily always good things.
Sure.
But I had heard it, and we got married March 21st of 81,
Mm-hmm.
and we were both at a non-denominational rally, kind of a Christian service. It was a Christian service.
Okay.
And that was in Portland. And we were sitting up at the top, literally the top seats, the top row of this, the Portland Coliseum. And the man was sharing the gospel, a man named Bill Britt.
Mm.
And I listened, and he made a statement. He said, if you were to walk out and get hit by a bus, and he was from South Carolina, so he had that accent. He said, would you go to heaven or hell? And after everything I heard, I realized I'd go to hell.
Mm.
And the second chapter in Ephesians where talks about the depravity of man and the wickedness of us and wanting to live in our flesh. And it described me how I was. He was speaking to the Ephesian church, of course, and that any good works that I thought I had, because I thought I was a good person, that I'd probably go to heaven. But after hearing the gospel and understanding that none of my works would save me, that it was faith in Christ, Jesus' grace, even the faith that God gave me at that moment to believe in the gospel was a gift of grace.
Yeah.
And so I became saved. There was an altar call, so to speak. And it was a large event, and several hundred people went down and received Christ at that time. And that started our journey, my journey of pursuing God.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome. You get married, you get saved.
We were married in March, got saved in July, early July. And I was at the time, I think I was going to college, and I was working part-time at a facility called the Adolescent Treatment Center. It was a center for youth with mental illness.
Okay.
And I would take the bus to and fro. And I was on the bus, headed home, and sat on the bus, and a young lady sat beside me. And this is kind of how I started coming to Fourth Memorial at the time.
Okay.
Because we didn't have a church.
Yeah.
And started a conversation. I shared that I was a new Christian, and she said, where you go to church? And then she invited us to go to Fourth Memorial.
Oh, okay.
And why not?
Yeah.
And so that's where we started.
Did you just come immediately when faith split off?
Yeah, we were at Fourth for 9 years approximately.
Okay.
And then the church split.
Okay.
And I remember telling Janice, let's just watch how each side, so to speak, handles this. And in that, we went with the split.
Those were hard times.
There were hard times.
What's your career path look like?
Okay, so I did eventually get my degree in recreation, leisure services with an emphasis in therapeutic. Started working at a place called, both Janice and I did a couple summer, we were like temporary employees for summertime at a place called Interlake School, which was for the profound and severely disabled.
Okay.
And physical and brain injury, stuff like that. Very, very disabled.
Is that the place that used to be across from Lakeland?
Actually, it was closer to the Eastern State Hospital.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, which has now been torn down.
Gotcha.
So I worked there. Then I went back to school again.
Okay.
They called me to ask if I wanted to come back and work full time. I said, man, I'm in school. I can't. And they said, and this is how it was back then, what about Janice? Because she had worked there part-time too. I turned to her and said, "You want to work at Interlake, honey?" She says, "Yeah, why not?" We didn't have any kids at the time. And while she was there, we got pregnant with our first son.
Okay, perfect timing.
Yeah, and so she worked 2 years, and then when she quit, I just slid into her position. So that started my 42 and a half years of state employment from Interlake. I worked there for 2 years, and then I transferred up to Eastern State Hospital and worked.
What kind of stuff did you do at Interlake and then Eastern State?
Interlake, like I said, they were so severely disabled. A lot of it was just trying to get them to respond to things.
Okay.
Working on some of the things that the education work was working on. We'd take them to the Y for therapeutic swimming.
Okay.
Which was really good. Do some outings with them just to get them out of the hospital, out of the place. Special events. So that was at Interlake, and then when I transferred up to Eastern, I said, at least these people can tell me yes or no that they want to do something. Because I got really burned out at Interlake. And so I went up to Eastern and as a recreation staff there, rec therapy.
Okay.
And really loved that. I was blessed to work there for the many years I did, and felt the Lord used me in that capacity. Eastern has quite a facility of have a bowling alley, an indoor gardening greenhouse, wood shop, a full-size gymnasium, weight room, a cardio room. So all those things I did, big special events, outings. So it was a good job. We were, I had some authority, but most patients knew that they gave me a hard time. They wouldn't be able to come off the ward and go do fun things.
So tell us about your ministry involvement at the church over the years.
Started out in children's ministry, Janice and I, under Susan Olson.
Okay.
With the toddlers, the young ones.
Okay.
Kind of helping us train for our own kids.
Yeah.
And then we got involved in choir.
Okay.
We did that for several years. And then through choir under John Dirk's leadership, we were growth group leaders for a season.
Okay.
And then that moved into becoming biblical counselors, went through the training for that. And we did some biblical counseling, pre-marriage counseling.
Okay.
For a while.
You guys have been all over the place.
Yeah.
I didn't know some of those things.
And then I was involved in what was called Ambassador Corps.
Okay.
Which was a ministry I did with Bob Gardner and Brad Alden, and there was a handful of men, usually men, and we would go out when people came to our church, we're checking it out, we'd follow up and go to their homes.
Okay.
And then sometimes just do cold knocking and do some gospel evangelizing that way.
Oh, okay.
Then we took a break from ministry for a while, and I'm back in children's ministry now, currently.
You're just full circle.
Yeah.
Just all the way back.
Working with the first and second graders, and it cracks me up. How smart, how brilliant some of these young kids are that you parents are raising. And so it's been a joy.
Nice. What has God been teaching you lately?
Oh, man. It took me, Seth, some years to really come to grasp that there was nothing I needed to do to earn God's love. And I think this may be typical for a lot of Christians, maybe, that, I got to be in God's Word more, I got to do all these things. And it wasn't, but several years ago, I realized I don't need to do these things to earn God's love. Jesus did that for me. And that was real freeing. So I continue to grow in that, just trusting that what I'm doing to pursue Christ is enough right now. I want to grow in that. I want to grow in my time in the Word and prayer, and loving and knowing Jesus as my Savior and as my friend. So still growing in my understanding of being married,
Aren't we all?
Yeah, loving my wife and living with her in an understandable way, and I fail at that. But God, she forgives me, and God forgives me.
It's definitely freeing to know that all those things that we do in the Christian life are a response to God's grace and not to earn God's grace, because if we earn it, then it's not grace, and
right.
You're missing the point. So,
yeah.
Well, how can the church be praying for you right now?
Right now, it's funny. I had a call from my older brother. I'm the youngest of 4 in my family.
Okay.
My oldest brother, Jim, is in his 80s. He's 10 years older than me. I'm almost 70. Yeah. Anyhow, got a call from my brother that's closest to me in age that my sister's husband died. Mm-hmm. So be praying for how God might use us in the future days of, if there's like a memorial service, how can we speak into that as far as the gospel? None of my oldest brother might know Christ. But just future ministry opportunities, being retired now, just seeing where God might use me more.
Okay.
Parenting, still helping with, we're not, just our own children, and now our daughters, praying for our daughters that they'd come to know Christ, and our grandchildren.
Yeah.
So, and our sons, we're seeing God moving there, so we're thankful to see that they're coming back to the Lord.
Yeah.
There's signs of that. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we will continue to pray. Are you ready for the speed round?
And we get some water.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Pineapple on pizza?
Yes.
Pets?
No, not at this time, and probably won't.
Okay. All right. But you have had lots of dogs.
We've had a lot of dogs. We've had cats. We've had rats.
Rats?
Rats, yeah.
Which son asked for those?
Well, we were counseled by a pet store that rats were a good pet to start with.
Okay.
And so we got some rats, and sadly, they weren't both the same sex, so we had a lot more rats.
Oh, no.
So
it's not the kind of animal you want reproducing.
So
in your home.
Yeah. They were in a cage, Seth. But then we moved on to, I don't know if we got a cat or dog first, but we one time had both. So.
Yeah. Favorite book besides the Bible? David
and the Sphinx. It was a children's book, which I enjoyed.
Oh, okay.
And since then, Janice found a copy of it for me for the grandkids.
Oh, fun. Favorite band?
Probably Three Dog Night.
Okay.
Saw them in concert about 3 or 4 times.
Nice. Favorite movie or TV show?
Through the Shadowlands. Braveheart also.
Best surprise gift you've ever gotten?
I would say from my lovely wife, a couple of surprise gifts. One was which is framed and hanging in our house, a silhouette picture that was done of her and I when we were dating by a man named Gordon Vale. And then she surprised me with a quilt she made, which on one side's Gonzaga and the other side is Seahawks.
Very nice.
So
2 wonderful gifts.
Yes.
If you didn't have to sleep, what would you do with all the extra time?
Probably work on my house, work on the yard, do more outdoor stuff, hiking, camping.
Nice.
Spend time with family, traveling, not a lot. We're not big travelers, but anyhow.
Nice. And then last question, favorite place to eat out in Spokane?
Well, recently it's been Chipotle.
Nice. That's the end.
Whew.
It's been wonderful to have you here.
Thank you, Seth.
Faith Bible Church. Bob Millican is someone you should know.